Good afternoon. Welcome to Hacking the Holiday Menu, your healthy eating survival guide. I'm Afia Bediako, and I will be joined shortly by my colleagues Brenda Dash and Ayana Mbonu. I'll begin with a brief introduction to WorkWell NYC. WorkWell NYC is New York City's employee wellness initiative. WorkWell NYC offers resources, supports, and programs to help New York City employees move more, eat well, take action to prevent disease, be well, and also supporting health equity. November is Diabetes Awareness Month, and we want to offer some information about diabetes and protecting yourself. Diabetes is a disease that occurs when the body can't break down sugar the way it's designed to, or the way it's normally designed to. Over 30% of adults have prediabetes, meaning they are at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. So we want to give you information about how to assess your risk and help you to take action. So please visit the webpage to learn more. Today we'll be answering you questions about how to prepare and enjoy holiday meals healthfully, and also how to manage stress and thrive during the holiday season. And I will pass it along to my colleague, Brenda.
Your holiday or the holiday season, to me, it's important for us first to acknowledge the fact that we are going to be around an abundance of food more than likely. And not only is it going to be more food, it's more so going to be foods that are high in calories due to their richness. So that's the first acknowledgement. And taking that into consideration, I think it's important to set a plan or to make a plan for yourself. And you want the plans to be realistic. We don't want to focus on weight loss during this particular season, but at least for weight maintenance. And I think that would be across the board to everybody. And for people living with diabetes, it may be for them to be able to still have a good control over their blood sugars. And likewise, anybody with high blood pressure, monitoring blood pressure during the season as well. We don't want it to go an array because we're going through this holiday season. So a few things to consider is how we're preparing foods. Maybe instead of frying where we know we're going to increase the calories, maybe we can look at air frying just to decrease calories, have a healthier option. Other great choices is broiling, baking, grilling, as well as steaming foods versus frying. I always say add fruits and vegetables to your menu. Not only do they provide a variety of nutrients, they're beautiful to look at, and they can also help provide an extra buffer. So you find that you're not overeating some of the richer foods. Likewise, focus on lean meats. This is the season of the turkey. So maybe try, as long as it's not fried, baked turkey, great option in addition to fish and some other poultry dishes. I would recommend possibly replacing some of the unhealthier fat options such as butters, margarines, shortenings with some healthier options, olive oil, canola oil. And it sometimes may not be replacing the entire dish, but maybe going half and half. So at least that way you're adding some healthier fat options. Also, I would say this is a season if you're preparing to think about sugar content, sodium content, which are sometimes the nutrients that we use to flavor our foods, right? Sometimes maybe we can decrease the amount of sodium that we're adding, maybe monitor how much of a bouillon cube we're using because they typically are high in sodium. And we know sodium can affect our blood pressures. If we're making our famous macaroni and cheese, maybe we can switch out whole dairy with skim. So you're still getting the same flavor, but you're decreasing the overall nutrient content. So that's definitely ways we can look at meal replacements. And also, I think it's a great time to be a strategic thinker in terms of, well, how are you going to approach? What if I'm not the one making the meal and I'm going to a family house? What can I do to help better prepare? But one thing you definitely don't want to do, you don't want to go hungry, right? Because anytime we go anywhere hungry, more than likely we're going to work off our impulses versus our natural inclinations to focus on healthy eating. A second option maybe is to bring a healthy option dish. You know, for example, this past summer, we were invited to an affair and I decided to bring fresh fruit. and there was an array of pies and all these different baked goods. But I'll be honest with you, half an hour in, the fresh fruit were gone. So never underestimate what other people will have. And just for yourself, at least you have that go-to item if you find that there's nothing available or you're concerned about what is available. Mindful eating. To me, this is a must, must, must. When you think of all the work that goes into making a holiday meal, I know I can tell you from my mom, watching her, she would wake up so early in the morning to put this turkey in. And turkey is typically a season for days in order for it to get all those flavors. So when you're eating it, take time to taste those flavors. Can you taste the paprika? Can you taste the onions? Take time to sit down and think about how much work went into the effort. And not only does it allow you to enjoy the meal because you're enjoying the flavors, it also allows your brain to tell your stomach, hey, you can hold back your full, because that communication right there takes a few minutes, or about 20 minutes actually. And what we find is that a lot of times we overeat because we're not putting the fork down. We're just going, 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 going. And after we complete the meal, sometimes we feel overfull. So I say, take this time to enjoy speaking with your family if you're going to be getting together with family, and pick up the fork, but don't be worried to put it down every so often. Another tactic, drink water before and during meals because water will help fill you up. And as we're talking about fluids, I would say balance. Do I want a high calorie fluid versus water or salsa water where I'm not getting any calories in? I personally would rather eat my calories versus drinking. So it's one of those balances. Remember, and to me, this is so and so important. Food is common for all of us. We need it for energy, right? But on an individual purpose, we enjoy food for many reasons. It may be cultural, social, what's available, what's the cost, what we like, what we dislike. So we're not here to say what you can't eat. What we're here is to teach us or work together to see how we can navigate this upcoming season so we can get the most out of it. We want you to enjoy the season. And lastly, remember, if we're talking about Thanksgiving, it's just one day. And your whole diet is not based off one meal, but at least if we approach it a certain way, it can help guide us through this whole holiday season. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Passing it over to Iana now.
Well, thank you, Brenda. That was some helpful information. I'm definitely taking notes for my dinner. Thanks, Sophia. If you can move this slide on. So, holiday stressors. The holidays can be could be a wonderful time for some people, but it can also be a very stressful time for many. And so, on the screen there, you'll see some things that you may want to consider. What are some of the common holiday pressures that you might endure? Purchasing gifts, maintaining traditions for people that you may have lost in the last few years. Do you have a very long gift list that may be hard to fulfill? There may be unattainable expectations. In this day and age of social media, hosting a family dinner could be a daunting task, right? Is your table Instagram worthy, and so just thinking about, what your expectations are and not, keeping up with the Joneses. Family dynamics may be a source of stress for you. Who do you invite? Do you go to your in-laws? Do you go to your family during the holidays? There may be divorced parents in your life, and wondering whether or not you invite different persons in your life, or perhaps, do you invite the new spouses? So family dynamics can be very tricky during the holidays. There may be grief over losing a loved one, especially prior to COVID. And so it's important really just to understand that your sadness that you may be experiencing is normal, and allow yourself to grieve. Just because it's the holidays, you don't have to force yourself to be happy either. So, allow yourself the time that you need to just process your feelings. And some of us may be experiencing seasonal affective disorder. So one important point to understand that this seasonal affective disorder is a disorder, right? And so that means it's a diagnosable disorder. And so if you are just a person who during the changing of the seasons is feeling a little bit down because we have less sunlight, then you don't necessarily have a disorder, right? So what are the things that you can do to kind of help yourself, right? Perhaps increasing your exercise, hydrating. Hydration helps to nourish the brain, and physical activity really helps to make you feel good during the holidays. I mean, and during just overall for your mental health. And so just thinking about some of these things, these stressors, lots of us are experiencing the same thing during the holidays. So you're really in good company. Next slide, please. So how do you take care of yourself during this time? So really, the most important thing I want to stress is put yourself high up on your to-do list, right? Your mental health is really important. So really make sure that you are a priority during this time, right? So one thing that you can do is definitely plan ahead so you are not overwhelmed, right? Spread out your errands and schedule time to relax during this time as well. As much as you are planning for shopping and planning for your menus and planning to get people together or decorate your home, plan for some time to relax as well. Okay, you're important. Make a budget. Finances is definitely a part of our the 8 dimensions of wellness, right? Managing your resources, really helping you to live within your means is really going to be important, especially during this time. And so the holidays are an absolute best time to consider your wellness, and your financial health is an aspect of your wellness. And so the financial expectations during this time can be really overwhelming, but keep in mind your motivation and your values when you are creating your budget. What are you comfortable spending? You know, and stay within those limits for yourself. As far as family dynamics, I encourage you to set aside your differences. You know, it's important. Family is really supportive, can be very supportive, can be very loving. And you might want to say to yourself that, you know, this is a time that you want to get together, and you're willing to set aside differences that may exist. Try to accept your family and friends just as they are. You know, we are imperfect human beings, you know, and so, you know, is it important to you to socialize and be around family? Then I encourage you to just, you know, go with the time, you know, and enjoy each other. You can create new traditions. If your old traditions are too painful to bear, find new ways to celebrate with your family, and adjust with time. The loved ones that you've lost would want you to enjoy this holiday season. And so just think about new ways to create traditions for yourself and your family. Acknowledge your feelings and work through them. And it's okay to feel sad. Like I said, if you are grieving the loss of someone, it's okay to feel whatever you are feeling, and just make space for it. I think a lot of times when we avoid our feelings and we avoid what we're feeling, it just exasperates it. And so I say acknowledge it, give yourself the time to relax, and just be well as best as you can. Next one is don't lose sight of what really counts. What really counts is important, right? And that is spending time with loved ones and taking care of yourself. Holidays about spending time and creating memories, and then really appreciating one another. So just really do think about what's really important during this time. Reach out to friends and family, really seek out your community to tackle loneliness. Social interactions really do help us to lessen the feelings of loneliness during the holidays. So really do think more about how you can take care of yourself during this time. So perhaps your circle of friends or family is small. And so just think about how you may be able to volunteer your time. That's a creative way to kind of expand your network and be around people during this time. Volunteering our time really helps, really is a way to motivate ourselves, and we get a lot out of, you yourself get a lot out of volunteering as opposed to just the person actually getting the time from you. You get a lot of personal satisfaction out of it. So think about creative ways to spend your time during the holidays. But most of all, this is a holiday. Holidays are times when we're going to have stress, but there's also times that we can enjoy one another. And most importantly, we want you to help you to understand that it's a time for you to take care of yourself. So that's my spiel. Thanks, Sophia.
Thanks, Ayana and Brenda, for setting the table, so to speak. I'm going to just introduce our question and answer section. So note that all participants are muted. You see us, we don't see you. So we're not really using the raise hand feature so much. Please do enter questions into the chat, preferentially the chat, not the Q&A box. And you can send them to just the panelists or send them to everybody. We can even, chat with each other a bit if you, have feedback and suggestions to anything someone else asked about. What's in the chat is participant driven. So, the experts on these topics aren't filtering any of that. So just be aware that, it's not reflective of our WorkWell or the individuals who are on camera's beliefs. But we do want you to be interactive in the chat and start placing your questions there. Ask for yourself, ask for a friend. So I actually am going to remove the slides at this point, and we'll get into our first question. So there we are. All right. So we have actually taken questions in advance, and we'll address some of those in addition to some of the questions that are coming through in the chat. So I wanted to begin by posing to Brenda just a sort of general healthy eating reminders, and then specifically for this season, how to enjoy a healthy meal without affecting or without ill affecting your overall health. So I'll give that to you, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I always start with the same split, I guess, and it is, you want to try and eat a balanced, varied diet. And people may say, well, what is a balanced, varied diet? And really, it's eating where you incorporate a variety of foods from within each of the food groups. And when we talk about the food groups, we got our grains, which is your rice, your pasta, your breads. You have your protein foods, and we talked about, or I had mentioned, maybe focus on the lean proteins, your chicken, your fish, your turkey, but it also includes your red meats, fats, healthy fats, canola oil, olive oil. We also have butters and margarines, fruits. Hopefully I don't have to go over those. Non-starchy vegetables, Brussels sprouts, it's the season. Broccoli, carrots, kale. Then we have our dairy products as well as non-animal dairy products. So you have almond milk, soy milk, as well as dairy products. So the goal is, and I'm looking around because I have a plate, a goal is to eat a balanced, varied diet where you're consuming foods from within each of those food groups on a daily basis. And I don't know if I should start here because this actually is a plate I would say maybe is not so balanced, right? So this may be one of the plates that we run to during the holidays where we're filling it up with all the foods that we've been desiring for the past year. But when we look at the balance, it may not necessarily be the recommendation. And the reason being, this particular plate is very heavy on our starchy food items, such as your rice, your pastas and breads. And typically those are the foods that get digested quickly. In other words, once we eat them, our body breaks them down. And not only can they promote weight gain if consumed in excess, for people living with diabetes, these are the food groups that are going to cause blood sugar levels to go up. So we can eat them and we want to consume them with every meal, but the goal is to possibly create more of a balance. And we do this by including foods that are not going to have a big effect on our blood sugars, such as your non-starchy vegetables and your protein, your lean protein items. And I always say you want to focus on including those type 2 food groups because it takes a lot of work for our body to break them down. And as a result, it stays in our system for a long time. So we feel full and satisfied. So we don't feel the need to overeat. And they help control our post-meal blood sugars. So believe it or not, even when we're approaching our holiday menu, we want to still aim to create this plate. And ideally, it may not look 100% what I would want you as a nutritionist here. But at the same time, for yourself, at least if you include a non-starchy vegetable and some lean meats, it does mean that without you even thinking about it, you're going to be able to control some of those other foods that potentially can get us in trouble in terms of our waistline, as well as blood sugar level control. And I just want to add, and we don't necessarily always think about fluids, but fluids are such a huge important part of what we eat. So I would also say be mindful of what we're consuming in terms of sugary liquids, because it can truly have an effect of our overall intake in terms of calories. And again, for people trying to monitor blood sugars, to me, fluids can be one of the hardest things or the things that work against you in terms of controlling blood glucose. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you for that introduction, Brenda. I want to actually add on, you mentioned sugary drinks, but also some comments are going into the chat about sweets everywhere and also desserts. So, whether with diabetes, without, trying to be aware of relatives, who have certain realities. Tell us about sweets and how to manage that.
Well, again, it's one of those things, what are your cravings? And for you to be able to identify. I always say, and I even and I had mentioned earlier, have some fruits available or fresh fruits. And it doesn't mean that you're going to omit having the pie or the cheesecake, but what it may enable you to do is to monitor how much you have. At the end of the day, a big part of what's getting us in trouble in terms of chronic conditions, because one of the things that chronic conditions all have in common is what we're eating is our portions. And in order for us to naturally decrease portions, we have to eat a meal and feel satisfied after. So in order for me to be able to get or to taste that piece of pie or taste that piece of cake and feel satisfied with it afterwards, it means that I want to couple it with something else. And if I couple it with a fresh fruit, then that can aid, number one, in how much I'm having, but it's also leaving you feeling satisfied. As a diabetes educator, I never say to people you can't have, because at the end of the day, if you restrict too much, people are then going to lose control. They're going to relapse and they're going to eat the whole thing. So the goal is to teach people or to work with people to help them create an environment for themselves where they can try to have, but not overindulge. And that's the key to really this holiday season, not overindulging.
Let me ask you, Ayana, stress, anxiety are often some of the emotions, and others I'm sure, that lead us to making certain kind of food choices. Comfort foods, sometimes there'll be sweet foods. So can you speak a little bit about anxiety for sweets? One of the questions asked is particularly in the evenings, this may be an area of consideration. So if you could address that a little bit.
Well, that question really did resonate with me, because when I'm at home and there's nobody at home, I just tend to have ice cream. That's my little quiet thing that I can do all by myself, But what I've learned is I think that it's important to really think about what your choice is, trying to, find healthier choices to have when you crave sweets. Sweets is my my real go-to thing that I really enjoy. But I've learned that always having that fruit basket on my table has been helpful to me. I was introduced to these little rice cakes, the apple cinnamon rice cakes. It's just enough sweetness and crunch that satisfies my desire. But when it comes to anxiety, I would just say, I think that if you can just evaluate what is triggering you, what that anxiety is, maybe what that anxiety is about, that maybe you might have a little bit better idea of what is concerning you on your route home or in the evening when you get home. Having a little bit more idea, and then having some easier things that are healthier to kind of munch on. thinking about also your coping mechanisms, right? How can you kind of swap out eating a sweet thing to something else that may be helpful to you, right? So if instead of me sitting on the couch, there's always something to clean in the house, you know. I say wipe out that bathroom a little bit more than once or twice a week, right? It can always use some cleaning. You know, I don't know if you have a dishwasher, but instead of putting things in a dishwasher, you can actually wash the dishes. That'll take up some time and actually be quiet time for you to kind of assess, you know, how you might be feeling. I say just try to infuse some other things in your evening routine that can really help you to kind of manage your emotions and feelings and try to find healthy things to swap out.
Thanks. There are always different choices. So being mindful of the choices we make and making sure they're in alignment with what our goals are. Someone put into the chat, in addition to what we talk, you guys are talking about fresh fruit, but also frozen fruit might be a good alternative to the ice cream, sort of. It tastes like sherbet is what the commenter said. So I want to ask both of you, either of you, about any go-to alternatives, go-to holiday dishes. And also I want to introduce that we have offered cooking demonstrations from WorkWell NYC, and there are recorded videos on our webpage and recipes. Last November, we actually had a holiday theme one. So there are some good go-to recipes for this season. So I suggest people to go over there, and then I'll ask both of you if there are any suggestions, whether, Anna, you already gave about alternatives to maybe less healthy food alternatives, but, you know, any other, you know, whether holiday meals, holiday recipe suggestions, or, you know, anything like that.
Well, when it comes to recipes, I find it difficult because, you know, culturally, everybody consumes differently, right? But one thing that I think is easy to do, and especially if we're talking about the season of roasting, is to even put fresh vegetables in the oven as you're roasting your turkey. And I'll use a prime example. I was speaking to Ayana earlier, and I was saying, I grew up on Brussels sprouts, but they were always steamed. And this, over the past year, I've started baking them and put in a glaze of balsamic vinaigrette. And it just creates such a different flavor and a richness. So I brought them last season or last year. Everybody was shocked that the Brussels sprouts had such a different flavor from the fact that they were cooked in the oven. So I think that when you roast a lot of your vegetables, it does give a different flavor and versus if you're steaming. And again, it's easy to make. It's not necessarily, you don't have to overthink about it. And you may enjoy the flavors.
Anything to add, Ayana, or go ahead?
Yeah, you know, my family, we love sweet potato pie. And so this holiday season, my sister, she's making the pie, but I'm going to make a big tray of roasted sweet potato, just cutting it up and a little salt and pepper and roasting sweet potatoes. So they'll be on the side. If somebody wants a piece of pie, they can take a little small piece of pie, but the instead of candied yams, we're going to have roasted sweet potatoes. So that's some things that we kind of, you know, culturally, we love our candied yams and sweet potato pie, but that'll be our swap out for this holiday.
Thank you both. There was also a question about turkey recipes, but I'm hearing some other sort of suggestions for veggies and alternatives. So sometimes it's also sort of what's going next to it as well. I can't help but to add, because we were talking about sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts, one of my faves that's good for this season too, actually roast sweet potatoes or a similar colored squash and Brussels sprouts. And one of the key ingredients is smoked paprika and garlic. So it's very simple. You know, a lot of those roasts kind of go in while you're cooking other things. So thank you for those suggestions.
And there are actually two ingredients that I use when I prepare turkey is smoked paprika, garlic, thyme, parsley. Yeah, so a lot of the dried herbs as well to get those natural flavors coming through.
Excellent. I know you spoke about your mom doing it from early in the morning, so sometimes marinating or, you know, letting it get in there for a while.
And slow cooked as well.
Yes. Yeah. One person asked about, we kind of have been talking about physical activity a little bit. I saw someone put in the chat, an alternative to snacking in the evening is exercising. Like if you want to eat instead, you know, march in place or do some squats. But sometimes we consider Thanksgiving holiday and trying to include some physical activity there. So I don't know if there are any recommendations about when is the best time, before dessert, after the appetizer, anything like that. So I want to pose that to you all.
I would say when you have time, but I'm going to add that you better make time, right? Because a lot of times if exercise is not a part of your general routine, you may say, well, what is that lady talking about? I don't have time. So again, what Ayana was saying in terms of planning, it's really important to plan when you want to do it. Like for me, I enjoy exercising in the morning because there's less people around me and I'm focused at doing it. If I wait till later on in the day, sometimes it doesn't happen. So for me, it's in the morning, but I don't think overall there's a recommendation before the dessert or after the dessert. But my key is let's try and aim to at least get 30 minutes of physical activity in per day.
So I was thinking about that in planning for this holiday, this Thanksgiving holiday, and trying to get my family involved in it too. So I was thinking about after dinner, before dessert, we could take a walk around 2 or 3 blocks because I'm here in the city. I don't live near a park, so can't hike or do anything like that. No football for me, but definitely taking a quick walk around the corner, 2 or 3 blocks is what I'm looking forward to, encouraging my family to come along.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, creative solutions. What works for you? I saw someone entered in the chat, they go skating. I think ice skating in their area. But walking around the block works, exercising before you even, alone, perhaps before you do the dinner. Ayana, I think you spoke to kind of nourishing some of your individual time. That might be a system, or, doing it together with the family, whether outside or indoors or however, you're led by. I found sometimes little ones can encourage activity too because they're more fidgety than us. So
I'll be honest with you, there's a game of BOGO and we're in our living room and it's like a tennis game and it's something that incorporates the entire family, but it's so much fun. And again, it allows for family time while exercising. So you can create and be creative.
Excellent. So I want to take it off of food a little bit and ask about another thing that comes up in this season, spending money. And, this is a stress, whether it's, entertaining and, it's the food related there or gift giving or whatever. So if there are any, I think, Ayana, I'll let you lead with this, but Brenda, of course, if you have anything additional, but can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the stressors of finances during the holidays, and I think that it might be a great idea to make your homemade gifts, right? So maybe you love to craft, maybe you like to sew, knit, crochet, maybe you are someone who loves to bake. I say make your gifts this holiday. Also, I know there was a question about actually how do you de-stress without having to spend a lot of money, right? So taking a nice hot bath with candles and again, going to scheduling in your own self-care, right? A good book with a nice cup of tea or coffee would definitely help me, and I'm hopeful that it would be nice for you as well. Call a friend, socializing. I can't say that enough. Socializing during the holidays is so vitally important. Our lifespan is extended over 50% when we continue to have meaningful relationships. So call a friend or a family member that you haven't talked to in a long time that would be really overjoyed by hearing from you. I love a good bookstore. I love to read. And so going to a bookstore and just, searching, looking at the magazines and what have you is fun for me. There's lots of free events too during the holidays. So I say plan ahead and find out what's happening in the city. We are in New York City, so there's lots of things happening. I don't know if you know, but there's this thing called Culture Pass. And so if you have a library card, you can log on to Culture Pass and you can get free passes to go to the local museums. And another thing about museums is that oftentimes the entry fee is suggested, and make sure if it is suggested that you suggest how much you're going to pay. And so there's lots of ways to kind of enjoy yourselves during the holidays and not have a huge bill. But planning ahead will help you to really understand how you can manage your finances.
Anything to add, Brenda?
No, I actually liked what you had to say, because even when I look back as a reflection, you don't really remember the gifts you got. It's what you did as an activity. You remember those memories of interacting with family members, with friends. So if you can create a season of that, I think it's great. And that's what I would recommend as well.
Great. One of the things that also came up, just a question about food again, is leftovers. And I'm not sure the person who entered the question could expand if there's more that they want to ask about it. But I'm thinking, like, maybe if we don't want to eat in excess, how do we manage that? So that's what I propose.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, my thing is, if you want to monitor how much you're eating, and trust me, myself, a registered dietitian, if I see food and it tastes good, definitely you want to overeat or you want to eat more. But you can always put some away. And especially if you're a family's house, well, anybody's, if you're in a restaurant, you can ask for a bag to go. But if you go to a family's home, I don't think there's any harm in bringing your takeaway boxes, which you know that you're going to pack away excess. And it allows you to enjoy it over a period of time. So I would always say use leftovers to your advantage.
Excellent. I'm seeing in the chat too, one way to sort of pay it forward is giving extra food to someone in need. Maybe not in your household. If you are all well fed and don't want to be overfed, that might be a way to share it out. So yeah. I'm also seeing in the chat lifted up our fitness schedule, the WorkWell NYC fitness calendar, just I think as maybe a stress management tool, or just saying that it exists. So thank you, participants who are sort of sharing the wealth and sharing what's worked well for you. I heard this in your response, Ayana, too, about maybe being cost conscious, giving people what you want, you know, and giving people wellness centered things, which aren't necessarily expensive. It might be time, it might be, you know, a family activity together or these sort of things. So that seems like that's being sort of lifted up in the chat and from your comments. So thank you all.
And I think especially given what we've gone through over the last 18 months, wellness is or self-care wellness, and taking control over some of these chronic conditions that we're living with is such a huge part of who we are. And I think a lot of people are more inclined to pay attention now, right? Because they understand the urgency as well as the importance. So I think being able to share wellness tips or activities and even food suggestions. I was having a group class this past week, and somebody had said, well, maybe the holidays is not the right time to change a recipe because everybody's coming to the table and people want those traditions. And I said, possibly, but maybe you can make two of the same recipe, one with the changes and one the original, and see if people can taste the difference, and then explain the reason why you omitted some of the sodium or why you cut back on some of the sugar. And I think a lot of people would be willing to respond and be more receptive, knowing that it can be better for them, for their health.
Yeah, totally. You know, different options exist if we're willing to explore them. And also try something, you know, and learn from that. I had a funny, I reorged a traditional cake recipe and my family was like, no, never do that again. That was bad. So I learned that I'll bring the regular cake, you know, but maybe I can do something different in a different environment where my grandma's cake recipe tradition, you know, can't be sort of messed up with other people who don't know it, you know. I wanted to ask you, Ayana, if there's any more you wanted to say about family dynamics. I know one of the questions that was asked was about like people sort of forcing sweets on you, or this could also probably happen with celebrations and other sort of like requirements in this season. So, you know, how do you politely sort of address that, you know, without hurting feelings and, you know, keeping everything intact, all the relationships intact?
You know, I think what's really important when having to be gracious and, you know, say no, is that you really want to be true to yourself, right? and have a real firm grip on your priorities, right? What's important to you? Is your health the number one priority for you? If that is the case, then, be okay with saying no. I say keep the promise to yourself just as you would keep a promise to someone else, right? And so you can start with a compliment. You can give your answer in a very gracious, kind way. You can say thank you and encourage them to donate it to someone else,
Great. Donation and paying it forward to someone else who's in more need, those are great recommendations. I wanted to also ask about diets and dieting in this season. I know Brenda, you spoke a little bit about that already. Like perhaps this isn't, perhaps Thanksgiving Day might not be the day for the diet. Or perhaps it is, because I think Ayana spoke to that a little bit about sort of confirming what matters to you, so both ways can be taken. But we've been asked about specific foods to stay away from if they are like, it's already been introduced that moderation is healthy, but if there are specific sort of no-goes, and then also a few questions about keto diet have come up. So I don't know if you could, Brenda, speak to both of those.
Well, in reference to the no-goes, and it's going to be my bias, would say more so fluids. And the reason being, to me, drinking calories versus eating calories, number one, they don't satisfy you after a long period of time. And a lot of sugary drinks, again, the calorie content in some cases can be equal to a meal. And I'm going to add to that, a lot of those coffees. I was in a Starbucks, not wanting to shout Starbucks out, but a coffee franchise. And some of the Frappuccinos, they're like 470 calories, which is literally equal to the size of a meal. So I would be mindful in terms of liquids. And in reference to diets, keto, Atkins, South Beach, my thing is, I think it's important, again, number one, for you to have a diet regimen that works for you. Everybody's different. And everybody's going to focus on certain diets that they feel appeals to them. A lot of people doing the intermittent fasting, while other people, if they go without eating for a long period of time, they're going to overeat at the following meal. So you have to do what works for you. The key though, and I'm going to always say that, these foods here, which is our non-starchy vegetable, I don't think there's any diet that is going to tell you to avoid these. And the reason being, is that they're high in fiber, they're high in nutrients, and they do so much for our bodies in terms of cholesterol control, and such as weight management, in terms of blood glucose control. So as long as we're including your non-starchy vegetables with your meals, it means without you thinking about it, you're naturally gonna control how much of the starchy items, the starches that we consume. And as a key of reference, starches are the foods that our body is going to break down quickly. And I always say, put a cracker in your mouth, don't chew, and within a few minutes, you're going to start to see it disintegrate. And the reason being, we have enzymes in our body that starts the digestion very quickly. So when you think of that, by the time it goes through our body, it means that it takes a few minutes. So you always want to include your non-starchy vegetables, your lean proteins, in addition to your starches. I think I'm always going to be one of those advocates. Have a balanced meal. My go-to is the plate. And the reason being, without you even thinking about it, is going to allow you to create that balanced meal. And I think that's it. I would never put down a diet because I do feel that many of them work. But in long term, you have to remember the goal to a healthy diet is to eat foods from all of the different food groups, because each one is going to provide different vitamins and minerals. I can eat a piece of broccoli all day long, and broccoli is very healthy. But if this is the only thing I'm eating, I'm not going to get all of the vitamins and minerals that my body requires. So in order for you to receive the benefits of eating, you do want to eat a varied diet. And that is it, really.
Thank you, Brenda. Someone else asked about low carb dishes, and without you going into it in any more depth, I heard you sort of respond in that boost the fruits and vegetables. And I mean, I think that
exactly.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So excellent. I would like to ask if either of you, what would you like to offer in closing before we sort of round out the presentation? How about Ayana, you lead us, since we just had some words from Brenda, and then Brenda, you could finish it off.
Well, like the slide said, that, the holidays can be a stressful time. It could be a happy time. It could be a tough time for lots of us for a variety of different reasons. Just tune into what's important to you. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Not just taking care of your loved ones, but taking care of yourself, and enjoy yourself as best as possible.
And I think I would follow up and say, take time to enjoy. It is a special time in the year where you really get to reflect on where you are, being with your family, and food, and as I had shared earlier, food is common to us all. It can provide so many emotions and feelings, and, we want you to be able to acknowledge that and enjoy. And, that's how I would end.
Thank you both. So I'm going to just close with a few more informative slides that we have. So I'll put those back up. And firstly, you can see the slides. Oh, wait, let me go from, there we go. Ooh. So just some resources available to you. So WW, formerly Weight Watchers, is a tool that is available at a subsidized tool that you can get at half off as a city employee. It's also something that's available via discount for retirees and those in our household. So if you have eligible dependents, spouse, etc. So wanted to just give this information for tools about healthy living in general, and specifically weight management as well. WW offers those tools. Also, EAP is something available to all without a cost, and they have individualized referrals, counseling, and a wide range of support services. So their contact information is listed here. And then for other self-care strategies, be aware of our guided meditations and the virtual fitness classes and the digital classes, so live and on demand. If you're not available at the times that the schedule is, there are also some that are available on demand. And a lot of these links are being placed in the chat for you, so you can get them from there. And the slides will also be shared, so they'll be available via the slides after the fact. Coming up, we have Transforming Grief into Growth, a roundtable early December, and then also a campaign, Give the Gift of Gratitude. So we spoke a little bit about sharing and taking care of ourselves and others. So there's some connection here, being aware of gratitude. And you can find out more about any of the upcoming programs at WorkWell at the website listed at the bottom. And then finally, just closing with our contact information so that you can stay in touch with us if there are follow-up questions, or just to say, hey, we love all the things that you're offering, or for upcoming programs that you want to connect with. So our various social handles and email and webpage is listed here. So thank you, presenters, or thank you, panelists. Thank you, participants. I hope that you were able to benefit from some of the resources and items shared here. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.